Bruce Lewis. I'm the proud owner of LB Limited and Associates Communications, where we specialize in large-scale public and private development projects. I'm a senior development advisor for a number of clients, and I'm located in downtown West Palm Beach. I also have a nonprofit called the Equity Entrepreneur Center, which was formulated as a result of all Black and brown companies that fell out during the pandemic. And that organization is in place to help stand up and close the technical assistance gap here in Palm Beach County.
This is Diversified Game.
A podcast giving entrepreneurial advice from a diverse and inclusive perspective with Kelly.
He may agree, he may oppose, and it's more than just race. It's about, ideas.
So let the game begin.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, this was a special one. This was one that was not easy to get. This is probably the longest wait I've had to get an interview, and you see the view. I had to come to the 4th floor here in Palm Beach downtown. This is the best view that anybody has in Palm Beach, and Chief Bruce Lewis. You guys, when you talk about government contracting and what you want to do and how you want to maybe lay out your career, I'm going to tell you this area, and I'm just going to show you, this is a nice area. I'll even show you, he might be a professional 7.0 tennis player. I don't know. We're going to get into that, but we're going to give you the game and tell you how he started, sustained, and succeeded in this. So you too won't listen to the hype of someone telling you it's going to happen overnight. This is 30 plus years of work and effort. So Bruce, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Kellen, for having me.
Okay, let's first talk. Are you a 7 on the tennis? What's your rating on tennis?
Well, first of all, you don't know nothing about tennis, and you know 7 rating. So, I'm a USTA certified tennis instructor. Have been for 30-something years. That's my passion. That's actually my stress management outlet, and I teach free courses and classes at Gaines Park, Oak-Healy Park, and Howard Park.
Okay.
So it's adult, intermediate, and advanced courses.
Okay. But there is a rating. They have ratings because
that's for professionals. I'm not a professional.
You teach.
I teach. I have a teacher certificate, but I am not a resident pro.
Okay. Sometimes when they see me on the court, they confuse me, and that's why they always ask me my rating. The only reason I know, I say,
Well, if you're saying rating in terms of your tennis skill, I'm a 5.2.
Okay. My game is I'm good on the first game, and then we're gonna stop, just like my pool game.
Wow.
Yeah, then we're gonna stop. So but no,
okay.
we need to come get some lessons. Do you teach kids?
Yeah, anything or any person over 9.
Over 9,
yeah,
okay.
My tension level and patience level kind of diminishes when they're younger than that.
Okay, I get it.
I like young ones who listen and who are serious.
Yeah,
about the game.
Yeah,
it's easier to teach them.
Okay. So with the government contracting, you've done this over 30 years. I know you went to school in Minnesota. Is that where you're from?
Yeah, born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota, South Side. For identifying where literally a block and a half from the George Floyd episode. That was in the neighborhood where I was born and raised. My neighborhood was nice. We had a lot of celebrities that were living in the neighborhood. Prince is one of them.
I was going to ask you, not just because you light skin. No, I was going to ask, did you know Prince?
I know Prince, knew Prince Nelson, knew his brothers, knew his sister, his parents. They lived 4 doors down from me, actually. So you could always hear him, taking his piano lessons and his dad yelling at him. So
wow.
That was back in the day when you could leave your front door open and your screen door locked. So much has changed since then.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we doing 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭, but my neighbors all shoot. So you come through that front door. I don't care if you're Amazon, you know.
I get it. I get it.
So growing up in that type of neighborhood, and you know, you have someone like, and you find what Prince is, you find out what you become. Was there something in that time that bred success? Was it a 2-family household? Was it a community? What has changed?
Well, I think part of it, a strong influence was that, back in those days, neighborhoods were true neighbors. And what I mean by that is that you knew your next door neighbor. And more than that, those neighbors would look out for each other's kids. So if I got in trouble and I thought I was getting away with something, the word would travel fast to my mom and I'd be in trouble because my neighbors were snitches.
Yeah.
So, for lack of another term. But that family structure and the neighborhood that I was raised in and just a close-knit part of the community really had a big influence. It kind of set my foundation. My father died when I was 9. And so my mother was dealing with 5 hard-headed boys. So she was no joke to play with. And you didn't dare try to challenge her because she had to run a strict household. Fortunately enough, she put me in the boys' club. Now, that is known today as the Boys and Girls Club. But back then, it was just the Boys Club. And I came across 2 men who mentored me while I was at the Boys Club. And that kind of filled the gap of my lost father, because I struggled with that loss. And these gentlemen stepped in and filled the gap, gave me role models to deal with. They're the ones that actually taught me how to play tennis. And I took that through high school, and it got me through college on a scholarship. So grateful for that. So those 2 things, the neighborhood strength and the male mentors that I had at a very young age at 9 influenced me.
Okay. Now, did your father pass? Was it health issues? Or
Yeah, he had a chronic liver failure. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, coming from Minnesota, a lot of folks don't even, if they haven't been to Minnesota, they say, black people in Minnesota. I'm like, yeah, there's black people in Alaska, if you know where to look. Talk about that community, a little more. And do we have that same community here in Florida now? Because people always say the South is where, family and everything is whole.
Well, quite a different contrast. So let's deal with the first part of your question first. So Minnesota was a very liberal, and still regarded as such now, but more to a greater degree back then, where it was a land of milk and honey. And a lot of African American families migrated, the Great Migration. My descendants came here through the port of Louisiana and migrated to Kansas City, Oklahoma, and then to Chicago, Minneapolis. So my family really made that migration. But going to the north presented a lot of obstacles, but at the same time, a lot of opportunities. So at that time, the total population of black and brown folks was only 2%. However, the quality of life was exponentially high. So that meant that if you were about anything, you had access to the same amenities that white folks did. So I took full advantage of that. I had no choice, really, because my mother was an educator. So education was a thing. And she gave me 2 choices. You either go to college or you go to the armed forces. We ain't trying to go to the armed forces, so I went to college.
So the similarities, we did the Boys and Girls Club growing up, and heard the same thing. And I thought every friend of mine heard the same thing. And those who did all went to college. Now it seems to be where people have options. You become a crypto millionaire. So you think with a Donald Trump meme coin, and when you came down to Florida, what brought you down here?
So I have a chemical electrical degree, BS degree. And so what that did for me is that I graduated in the top 5% of my class. I was like a flying buttermilk when you looked at the School of Engineering at the University of Minnesota. It just wasn't a lot of us in there. So it was like a flying buttermilk. But graduating in the top 5% allowed raise some eyebrows. There's the corporate headquarters for Honeywell, Solid State Division, is in Minneapolis. And so I went to work in my sophomore year as an intern for Honeywell Solid State Division. And there you learned how to do the chemical electrical processes by which to mass produce integrated circuits. Again, another environment that you just did not see anybody of color in. Always started out with a challenge, with the mental aptitude and the capacity for someone of color to really learn and cope and master science and physics and stuff like that. So I found that to be a challenge. I did find out a few things about myself in that process, is that, knowing that there was going to be challenges and I didn't back away from them, I actually found out later on in life that I'm attracted to challenges. so I started at a very young age. That took me to a headhunter who I kept for 13 or 14 years, who put me in a position in Boston, Massachusetts with Digital Equipment Corporation as a junior engineer. Learned all the stuff there, learned all the tricks of the trade, the different processes and methods and kind of case study experimental things that you do. That elevated my value. 3 or 4 years later, went to Philadelphia, worked for a company called Commodore Computers. For those that go back, they had the first home computer that was rival competition to the IBM first home computer. And then it went on to the Commodore 64, which was a more sophisticated computer system and microchip based, the brains of a computer. So I had 2 patents there. That attracted me to RCA in Somerville, New Jersey. Moved to Philadelphia, moved through the ranks, and I got a special assignment in South Florida to develop what they call radiation hard chips, which are nothing more than receiving and sending chips that operate in space. The absence of gravity, humidity, and so forth and so on. Now, fast forward, that's known as direct TV or satellite TV. And so that's what brought me to South Florida. We finished that 4-year pilot project a year early, and I had a choice at 36 to, all right, Bruce, you can move back to Philadelphia, work at corporate headquarters in Somerville, or we can give you the early retirement package with one caveat. If you take that, then we're going to make you responsible for shutting down the RCA plant, which is up in Palm Beach Gardens. Actually, it's where Channel 25 is right now. That whole campus, it's a medical campus now, was all a manufacturing plant for integrated circuits. And the right to work stayed here, got the labor cheaply. So that's what got me here to South Florida. Once I took that early retirement package, a little golden parachute, if you will, I had time on my hands and I didn't want to be idle. I lived off that for 2 years and did some independent consulting and R&D research for a dental implant company called 3DI. Wasn't allowed to have that patent, but I got patent royalties. And then I decided, let me try something else, because I have a business administration minor. I didn't really use that during my engineering career, which I call career 1. And so I says, let me call a buddy of mine that I went to college with, who was the the PR director for Northwest Financial, which was headquartered out of Minneapolis as well. I called him in the wintertime, January 4th, and said, you might want to come down here. He asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm just sitting on my patio with a glass of lemonade and my flip-flops and shorts. And I asked him, what are you doing? Man, I'm getting ready to go out and do the second shift on shoveling the snow. We got a snowstorm. I said, that's why you need to come down here. So I invited him and his wife down, eventually talked him into doing an 18-month worth of research to figure out what kind of business we wanted to go into. And we decided communications because, 1986 to 92 in Palm Beach County was still a transient kind of county, was growing. It was one of the fastest growing areas in the country at the time. And people decided to put their stakes in the ground, get homesteaded, and the population boom started to happen. So we had an opportunity to grow as the county grew. And I thought that was an excellent opportunity for us to grow and spread our wings as this county started to grow. So that's what got me here. Making the switch to career 2, being a business owner. We formed an organization in 1990 and still going full steam now. Unfortunately, my partner retired in 2011. He couldn't do the grind anymore. And so that's when we made this pivot to not just do communications or public relations, but specialize in development, because really in engineering, everything goes in sequence. There's a procedure and methodology that you have to follow. Same thing is true of the development process and construction process. So I just kind of shifted my skill sets and applied it to another industry, if you will.
Okay. Now, you said something, because online, everybody is rich. Everybody's retired their mother, their father. They're retired, but they're every day online, right? Talking and trying to get you to buy their course or buy into what they're selling.
Right.
When before 40, you're able to retire. Would you have been able to do that if you did not go to college? Was there any way that you could have had that same thing and got those same kind of skill sets without going to school for what you did?
Not at that time, because really the choices were slim. As I mentioned earlier, is that I was only given 2 choices from my mother, and that was to go to the armed forces or go to college. There wasn't even an option mentioned about not going to school or going to a trade school or going to an apprenticeship program, to be a construction worker or a technician, HVAC technician, or anything like that, or even the notion of starting a business. That didn't exist when I was that young. Now, today, if you look at today, there's a myriad of options that we have, and people tend to choose those directions that are most comfortable for them. But I think because of the family structure, the environment I grew up in, and what my parents thought was most important for me to do, college was the choice. No, I couldn't have been in the place of retiring at 36 years old and doing what I'm doing now if I didn't go to school, if I didn't perform well in school, if I wasn't attracted by some of the largest IT companies in the United States. I don't think I would have had that opportunity, and getting over the obstacles of being a black man. That that right there, that part. I can tell you something really quickly here about when I figured out I was a rare commodity. So I was go into an interview with RCA. Up until that point, I had phone interviews. And so checked all the boxes, answered all the technical questions. They basically quiz you about your knowledge base and your experience and so forth. So the good thing about that was that my 2-year internship at Honeywell, I knew the ins and outs. And I was under some of the strongest R&D engineers in the industry at that time, cutting edge stuff. So I was like a sponge to them. So I came down here for my interview in person, and I was sitting in the lobby with 4 other people, all of which were white. One white female and 3 white males. And this guy that I was going to interview with, his name is Paul Essner. I'll never forget his name. He went to each one of those white people first. Said, "Are you Bruce Lewis?" No. And then the look on his face, just for a split second, was shock. But I know what he was thinking.
Yeah.
This can't be him.
Yeah.
He's black or whatever. He went through culture shock.
Yeah.
So that to me was the indicator that says, I'm going to be challenged while I'm here. Because he just didn't think that this one black person in the lobby was the guy he was going to interview.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Some people will hear this and they say, okay, this guy's a genius. This guy's a genius. And we always try to find steps of how people can try to copy that. So one, you have to go to school, and then do good, or you would not have been in that position. What was it that you're doing outside of school? Were you tinkering with stuff? Were you creating stuff on your own? And, what was going on?
So, that's an interesting question. Never been asked that before. But I'll share what I did outside of school, and really from the age of 9. So being a part of the Boys and Girls Club, I got exposed to a lot of different stuff. And I was always a Curious George kind of little boy. So I used to take like my mom's vacuum cleaner at home and take it apart and try to put it back together, and figured out I couldn't put it back together.
That was the heavy vacuum.
Yeah.
had all type of parts.
All kinds of stuff, man. And so I was just curious as to how this thing would just like clean up stuff and catch it in this bag, and I wanted to understand how that worked. So I started taking the thing apart and thought I could get it back together before she came home from the university after a long day of teaching, and I fell short on that, and I got put on punishment, got a whooping, and all this other stuff. And then so that didn't stop me. Took apart our lawnmower a couple times. I learned how to put that back together in short order, and just figuring out how things worked, and really trying to figure out how to make them better was this kind of innovative curiosity side of me. So that's the stuff I used to do, tinkering around when I wasn't on the tennis court and I just wanted something to do. That's what I did. Got in a lot of trouble for it, but I got benefit from it too. So
sounds like good trouble, because it could have been, you could have did 15 other things, but when you had to entertain yourself, you find a way.
Trying to figure out a way to how these things worked, and really solve my curiosity more than anything else.
Yeah. So there's some things when people are coming up, you hear guys say, man, I'm going to get married once I get everything together, once I have my house and I can move this person in. I say, oh, you don't know what marriage is. Can you talk about the marriage part? Because that's the stuff that you hear right now. People talking about high value and he has to be this and she has to be that. And you're like, wow, you don't understand what this whole marriage thing is about.
Well, for me, it's a mixture of all those things. So I had a 2-year scholarship to the University of Nebraska, and that's where I took advantage of my tennis scholarship. And then I moved back home to take advantage of the in-state tuition program that they had at that time. And I met a young lady there in Nebraska, and actually in Omaha. She's from Omaha. And so I thought she was interesting, very nice looking young lady, and we started to date. But when my tennis scholarship was up, it was time for me to move back to Minneapolis and finish out at the University of Minnesota and get my engineering degree. And I asked her if she wanted to come with me. Back then it was kind of taboo to be shacked up with some guy, not being engaged or not really connected on the path to matrimony and all that. And so I had her make her own decision. Her mother intervened quite a bit to say, you're not taking my daughter anywhere unless you marry her. And so I respectfully told my wife's mother that, well, I'm going to marry her when I'm able to take care of her. But I want her with me, to live with me until I get my degree and get a real good job. She didn't like that. My wife went against her word. So we shacked up for a couple of years, got my degree, and we got married in 1980. Been married for 40 whatever years it is now, 45 years or whatever it is. So that was an interesting episode in my life. And my mother-in-law, God bless her soul, she stayed mad at me for 10 years because I didn't do it her way.
Yeah.
And my thing to any young man out there, make sure you can take care of yourself first and take care of the woman that you're going to have in your life as a part of this dual track that you run on. Because I believe African-American men in general, but particularly African-American men, need to be providers. And they need to also have the responsibility of taking care of the family and being a provider for their family. So I live by that. I've been living by that. I don't know any other way to do that. Just so happens it worked out very nicely with my wife because when I met her, she was a hustler. She had 2 jobs and always trying to figure out a way to make money. She was a very enterprising young lady, and that had an influence on me. So like minds kind of, attracted each other. I said, you know what? It's not so bad. I'm going to be the provider. But it's nice to know that your partner has that kind of drive and ambition. And she really liked to have her own money. Really, that was a real deal.
Yeah, yeah. Don't they all?
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And to this day, she's a business owner. She's the first business I really started ever. Before I started mine, I started her business. So she has a full-service hair salon. She's been in business for 36 years or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 1 year more than me.
Wow. And a hair salon here in Palm Beach County?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, which is interesting because Black females in the South go through the humidity thing. They go through the salt content at the beaches. They go through sweat stuff. So it was a really good business for her. And she deals with professionals, lawyers, school administrators, et cetera, and has generations of clients now. Those, original clients had children, daughters. Now those daughters are grown; they still go to her. So we've been blessed that way.
Well, shout out the company in case somebody's looking for a hair salon.
𝐃𝐨𝐬𝐿 Hair and Nail Salon.
Okay. And when you talk about providing, a lot of that gets, people think it's just financial, but I know you have your daughter working here. Can you go a little deeper on that? Because people think, oh, I can provide and my kids don't have to work. Like, it's the stupidest thing I think I've ever heard when people say, my kids never have to work. And I say, 1, you're not that wealthy, if you're wealthy at all. And 2, why would you not want your kids to have some hustle and drive and a purpose of their own? But can you talk about what you did to put that drive and how you're able to work with your kids? Because some people say, Kellen, I can't work with my wife. I can't work with my kids. And I say, what type of house do you have where you can't, do life with these people?
Hello, everyone. Come along with London and Sydney as they show you around the vibrant country of Cameroon. Explore the heart of Africa through the eyes of London and Sydney. 2 explorers who journey across the great city of Yaoundé, exploring its rich culture, vibrant market squares, cultural heritage, and wildlife. With giggles and excitement, London and Sydney Explore Cameroon takes you on a fun-filled adventure, providing insight into the country's culture and traditions through the pages of this book. It's packed with exciting stories and super cool facts about Cameroon that will make you go, wow. Get your copy now, available on Amazon and in libraries near you. There's only one easy way to experience the exploration of Cameroon, and it's through London and Sydney. Don't wait, get yours.
So, interesting question. So, being a black man is tough, right? And so not only do you have to be a provider, but there's different forms of providing. With my kids, I have 4 kids. My oldest is a boy and 3 girls. But being in a household where there's 2 business owners, and at that time I was very much involved in the community, United Way, Boys and Girls Club, and all these events I had to go to, et cetera, et cetera. But I would take my kids with me, my younger daughters with me, particularly Megan, who was just like my date. She went everywhere with me. But you never know how much rubs off on your kids because they're exposed to the things that you do. So, I mean, 2 of them basically had playpens in my wife's shop while she was running her business day to day. And then if they weren't with her, they were with me at some event, some fundraiser, some gala, some whatever. But you never know how much of that they absorb and use until they're grown and out of your house, right? Or when they're old enough to make their own decisions. So surprisingly enough, they all took a part of what they were exposed to from my wife and myself being business owners, and the importance of being in the community and contributing to the community. So fast forward to now, that kind of providing education, providing exposure to the things that you were involved in as an adult and a parent rubs off on your kids. You just don't get validation until they're grown.
Okay.
And then you find out, wow, they absorb this. And, I look at my youngest one, who I least suspected to grasp and be a sponge, now has really taken a good portion of what she's been exposed to through myself and my wife being business owners and being involved in the community. She emulates that now to a degree with the Equity Entrepreneur Center. She's in the educational space. She has the spirit of an entrepreneur, and she has this willingness to give back. All of them do in their own way, and to varying degrees. So, yeah, pouring into your family as a form of being a provider, not just from a monetary sense. And yes, my kids had to work.
Yeah.
But they got all of what they needed and some of what they wanted, because I wanted them to understand the importance of the work ethic. And what are you going to do when I ain't here?
Yeah.
Who's going to take care of you? If I'm taking care of you that whole and I'm not here anymore, then what? Yeah. You're going to hit a dead end. You're not going to have any skill sets. You're not going to have any tools in your toolbox to survive on your own.
What age did you start that at? Because if you lost your father at 9, that has to go through the back of your head when you know they're 9 every time, and you're like, man.
Yeah. Well, with all of them, probably 5, 6 years old. And Megan was the last one. My 2 oldest kids, there's a 10-year gap. And they always tell me and my wife that, man, the 2 young ones got it made in the shade. They're on easy street. They don't have to do all the stuff that we did, but so I tell them that, well, you guys, we were young parents then. So you were like guinea pig kids to us. So we went through trial and error with you and got to be better parents. And the benefactors of that were the 2 young ones. Yeah. So, but generally speaking, all of them across the board, we got them involved in stuff from age 4 or 5 years old, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
when they were manageable, when you could take us to a place when so high maintenance to kind of keep an eye on them. And they've learned how to speak to people in crowds and behave themselves and all of that. But social etiquette and skill sets only comes through exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't shelter them, we didn't restrict them, and we kept them busy in their own extracurricular activities, sports and what have you, dancing, stuff like that.
Okay. This is good. This is good stuff. When you say you find out later, because we always say it was beat into us, but now it's a whole different time, and I don't have kids that you have to beat, thank God, but you just don't know, and
That's
you
right.
say, man, so you've done a lot. You talked about E2C. I ask everyone what their community give back that they're doing or that they want to do in the future. Where do you want E2C to grow, or what is another community give back that maybe people don't know? Because again, you got the tennis, you're doing so much, which it's beautiful. It makes me think one day you might run for governor. But
that won't happen.
But talk about these community give backs and how people can sow into these and support you in that.
So, really, in my brain and through my exposure, the first organization I got involved with when I moved here was the Boys and Girls Club, because I'm a product of the Boys and Girls Club. Mm-hmm. And that was an interesting situation because that was one form of give back to me. I mean, this was an organization that helped groom me, exposed me to two wonderful life mentors that just filled a gap. So I felt this need or requirement really to give back to the organization that helped shape me and really kind of level me out for life, for the rest of my life. So I got involved with the Boys and Girls Club, and through Mayor Carrick Mayor Williams, Clara K. Williams, was the mayor of Riviera Beach at the time, and wanted me to be a part of the Boys and Girls Club at Riviera Beach. So I did. And I came board chair quickly and then started to raise money for a new club. And so the money raised there was about $11 million over a 2-year period of time. And I discovered another skill set that I'm a professional beggar, and have the shame in my game, and didn't take no for an answer. Mm. And if you told me no today, that means, okay, that's no for today. Yeah. But what about tomorrow? Yeah. So I just come back and ask the same question the next day until I beat them down until they said yes. So got to be a pretty good fundraiser. That caught the eye of the United Way, who recruited me to be on their board. And much the same thing. I served on that board for 12 years, but in the 5th year of my board tenure, I got asked to run the capital campaign. That was in 05, 06. Now, being a campaign director for a big organization like that came with a lot of time consumption and commitment. So I had to get permission from my partner to, I got to take a leave of absence for a year. I mean, I'll still be working on my projects and we'll still be okay, but I'm going to do this. The interesting thing about that opportunity was, typically their campaign managers are people who are, corporate CEOs that have support staff and all this other stuff. I was a small business owner. It was just me, my partner, and 4 employees, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but to be tapped to do that because of, I guess, building all these relationships in the community, it was something that the executive director thought I could do. And so I took that on. That opened up so many doors for me. That it was ridiculous. But the thing about that kind of give back was that, At that time, the United Way was funding organizations that had special needs in the community that had to be filled. And so I know that fundraising effort would have provided funding for a lot of organizations that provide services to Black and brown people in underserved and under-resourced communities. So that was another way of giving back. But it also helped launch and broaden my relationships and resources with all these corporations. So I didn't know how that was going to work at that time, how I could benefit from it. I mean, I just didn't know. And so finished the campaign, raised a record of 15.5 million. At that time, I think that record still stands, but it was the first Black man to run a campaign, the first small business owner to run a campaign, and compared to corporate CEOs. So I thought, wow, I mean, we're in the 21st century, and I'm in the South, making history, which I'm not real fond of, because it was the 21st century. Something like that should have happened way before I came into the flow, right? But it is what it is, and there's a lot of other firsts. So giving back to the community, and I always say it when we talk about E2C to all cohort members, I know you've heard it, is that, find an organization that you're passionate about in the community, and demonstrate that you're going to be a good corporate citizen by giving something back. And it's not always money. You might be lending your time, your skill sets, your company, provide pro bono services to help, control their budgets, not charge them for anything, but in exchange, you get the promotional benefits of being a sponsor or whatever. Find that organization that you're passionate about, get involved, and make a contribution, because then your blessings come.
Wow, that sounds like your book. That's gonna be the title of the book. And your blessings come, and talk about where we are with the book. How many chapters deep
I have not started any book. I've been told that I need to do that, write a book of memoirs, whatever. My version of all of that, Kellen, is more about trying to fulfill what I've always been taught and now practice by giving back to others, but in the entrepreneurial space. I mean, ever since I formed, LB Limited, I was always a small business advocate, a voice for the small guy, asked the tough questions, public policy change, use my influence in relationships to advance others. And as a result of that, I have 47 mentees, and 45 of them are still in business, and a lot of them are doing excellent, some of which you may know, and others have turned into great community leaders and elected officials. So, Eric Kelly from the Quantum Foundation, one of my first mentees, look what he's doing. He was a United Way staffer, and there were 3 Black staffers at the United Way at the time I served. Eric was one of them. 𝐸𝐻𝐻 Chavez was another one. And Daryl Houston, who's with the Community Foundation, was the other. Look at Ms. Chavez is now the executive director of 𝐟𝐨𝐫𝐞, formerly with the Allegheny Franciscan Foundation. So those 3 Black professionals that worked for the United Way were mentees of mine, and they're doing excellent things now, emulating and doing the same thing that I'm doing, and giving back to the community. So giving back to the community has many layers for me. It's those who I impose and insist that you give something back to your community in the form of being an entrepreneur or business owner. I think your corporate citizenship should be wrapped in some way, shape, or form in giving back to the community. As a mentor and a mentee, I want you to do the same thing that I'm doing for you for somebody else. That's giving back to the community one by one by one. And then my third life, as I call it, the Equity Entrepreneur Center, really embodies my life work of helping small businesses stand up tall, be sustainable, grow, hire other people, and enhance the quality of life for all people. So it's 3-layered for me, but it's nothing out of the ordinary that I've already done or will continue to do. I'm having too much fun.
Okay. And it looks like it. And I don't want to give him too much, because whether it's the book or the podcast, whatever you do first, because I think we've talked E2C, it would just make sense to have its own podcast. You got all the entrepreneurs and documentation. But what does it mean to you when you were able to retire? And then you talk about you have other royalties, and then you were here in Palm Beach when the land was cheaper, not to say it was free, but to say, I don't really have to worry about money. Like, is that a thing that even crosses your mind, where you're like, I don't have to worry about money? And then the freedom of not being in survival mode, which so many people in America, no matter what color you are, but Trump would tell you, he need another 54 billion. So, and he's just down the street. So he might, well, he's not here because I didn't see the plane coming.
Yeah, no, he's not here right now. So that's an interesting question. So never really ever been motivated by money. I know that it takes money to survive. And as long as you have the ability to generate revenue, whether it's to take care of your household or for your business, that was never really my motivating factors at all. I mean, if I was just motivated by money, then that's what I would be concentrating on, is making more money. I was fortunate, to take an early retirement package from RCA, because it kind of helped give me a cushion. But that cushion allowed me to be flexible to explore my options on what I really wanted to do. And so, coming to the realization that I really did like business administration as a minor. I found it fascinating. Economics, world economics, macro economics, statistics, all those things. And then, what made these entrepreneurs who they are? So I started doing a lot of reading and finding out that I think I could be an entrepreneur. And so, having that, that golden parachute drop on me, just allowed me to explore, research the next phase of my life. I mean, I wasn't going to stay retired at 36. I needed something to do. I mean, I was too young. I still had a lot to give. But in what area, that's what the research was done for. And so I didn't know really anything about public relations. I knew business administration. I knew how to do operations and organizational management from my business administration minor. And my partner, he taught me about public relations and communications. So it was a learning curve even from that standpoint. But to me, money just wasn't the motivating factor, or it was just a mechanism to make sure that you were a provider and you took care of your family. And I had a comfortable little cushion that allowed me the flexibility to kind of think about what I want to do further on in life. So I'm comfortable, but I could retire today. I could retire today. And the thing that keeps me moving in the space that I'm in has never been being motivated by money, but the desire to help others. My real payment if I were to say humbly, is that I like it when I've helped somebody get to another level, and then I see them, pull somebody else up, which is exactly the only requirement I had for them from Jump Street. And see that happen, and they get validation that I helped them. That's worth more than money to me.
Yeah. No, definitely. But, people will say that's because you're not trying to keep the lights on. The lights are on. And I say that because when I hear people say those things, I say, are you supposed to have this success shame and be like, oh, hold on, because life is good? I'm supposed to be like, oh, no, no, let your light shine. And with letting your light shine, it's about relationships. How much if somebody wants to get into government contracting? Because if you turn on YouTube, put government contracting in right now, it is how to make millions. It always starts with how to make millions, right? They don't say nothing about no RFP, RFQ,
right?
Source of nothing, just how to make millions. And what would you say, how much of government contracting is relationships based versus, you filling out RFP and your RFP looks better than anybody else's?
So interesting. There's a balancing act there. And so, once we decided to be a certified small business, there was more to that decision than just being a certified small business. So what you get certified, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it? All right, is the next thing. And then the thing after that is, now that you are in the space, how am I going to win a contract? And more importantly than anything else, writing an RFQ, ITB, RFP, and being successful with it, are you going to be able to perform the task?
Yeah.
And do you have your internal house in order from a compliance standpoint and capacity standpoint to actually perform the task that you were awarded a contract for? So, but the relationship side of it is interesting because we made a point, my partner and I, to forge relationships with government in general, but specific departments within government that we were going to have to be in communication with to perform any contractual anything with. So those relationships started 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing about that is that elected officials come and go. So their life expectancy and shelf life is short. But you still had to have the relationships with them while they were in office, right? But the standard stable element within government is staff. They stay employed for 20, 25, 30 years. So if you're around that long and they're still in place, you start to forge relationships with them. And really, in actuality, they're the ones that are doing all the work.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Policymakers are just policymakers. They don't know the nitty-gritty details of anything.
Yeah.
It's staff that does. So when you have those kind of relationships with staff, a couple of things happen. First of all, you're not a flash in the pan. Secondly, you've been around for a while. Thirdly, they've been around for a while. And fourthly, you start to have kind of a nurturing, mutually benefiting relationship because they're helping me. And by the way, I'm helping them. Yeah. By delivering what I need to deliver on time, what have you. So the relationship side of it is critical. Understanding what your obligations are once you do get a contract is one thing. Writing the RFP and responding to an RFP is certainly a skill set that was trial and error for us. You had to learn the system. You had to learn what was important, what wasn't. But at the end of the day, being succinct to the point, because after all, the people who are reviewing these RFPs or these public solicitations are government employees, and they have not just your proposal to look at, but several others. So if you're succinct to the point, answer the question. A lot of people have this tendency of over providing information. That's the wrong way to do it. It took us trial and error to find that out.
Yeah.
So, but now I'm in this space where I'm going to be teaching a class for the city of West Palm Beach called Business Health Checkup. And it has everything to do with once you won an RFP or an RFQ or public solicitation, is your house in order to perform the task?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, do you have your proper insurance? Do you have enough money in the bank to float, 30, 60, maybe even 90-day delays in getting paid so that you can pay the people that are on your team?
Yeah.
We don't think about that kind of thing. So
then I get my millions, right?
Then
on
you
the
get
first
your
on the first contract.
Yeah,
from the YouTube, from the YouTube.
Now it can work like that, but in progression, it helps you to scale. So if you win a contract and you're in compliance and you're in a position to actually perform the work required, and you deliver an exponential, commercially useful product at the end of the day, guess what happens? You start to get called back in to do work without a solicitation.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get the heads up about something coming down the road that ain't even hit the public, domain yet.
Yeah.
So now you have all this luxury of time of preparing for it. You might even get information that will help you win that solicitation, but they just go through the solicitation as a formality.
Mm-hmm.
So there's economies of scales attached to it. When you know the game, you master what's really required, you have the relationships in place that are trusting, and people know that your capabilities. And so those three things that come together, that increases your success rate. So we were able to be successful after the 4th year, 5th year, whatever, but it was just steady hits. Boom, 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 boom.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I have 4 government contracts, all of which are 5-year or longer duration. So, and then I have my private clients that I deal with. So.
And life is good. And again, I want to save something for when you do your YouTube, whether it's to E2C or your personal or both, because you could go every day or you could go every week and give some information. And it's, we have the people who really don't have the information, that they just know how to put words together, versus folks who, this is how I've done it, I'm doing it, and my course is free through E2C, right? Mm-hmm. But what, here in Palm Beach, or maybe all of Florida, what organizations would you suggest most of us go through? We know E2C go through. I'm part of the Forum Club of Palm Beaches. I'm a new member because I just wanted to see what was going on. The business board has told me how expensive theirs, and I'm like, well, I don't know. But which organizations would you say would help people, to get those relationships?
So one that I'm loyal to and a founder of, first and foremost, for Black and brown folks, and really white people too, is the Black Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. The Black Chamber of Commerce, by its mission alone, really helps to promote and provide opportunities for all its members. And our corporate partners, the likes of, FP&L, Nextera, the Economic Council, the Business Development Board, they're all partners. And so we have our tentacles into them. So for somebody to join the Black Chamber of Commerce, if you're a business owner, would be a great one. The Women's Chamber is another one if you're a female-owned business, because they're very, very proactive. Hispanic Chamber is another one. So the Chambers of Commerce are always these wonderful little outlets if you're an entrepreneur and you want to expand your reach, your network, and your bandwidth. Always those organizations and business associations that are of like minds. The other community-based organizations that I like to stay involved with are the United Way, because of the expansive, really social service nonprofits that they fund through their fundraising mechanism, is always a great place for a small business or an individual who wants to do something meaningful in the community and affect others' lives in a real sense. United Way, you can't go wrong with that. Boys and Girls was always another one. But in terms of, national associations, there's several that I've been a part of. Well, one was the National Association of Black Engineers, which was a wonderful thing for me to do, but that's in a whole nother space. If you're an engineer, that's a good one for you to deal with. The Aviation Association of America, which is run by the FAA, which is, really provides opportunities for Black and brown companies in the aviation area. So those are always good governmental contractual arrangements that people can take part in. The opportunities are plentiful there. But I would say, generally speaking, I think there's no real right or wrong organization to be a part of. I think the only requirement for an individual or a business owner is wrap yourself around the organization that you're passionate about. Maybe there was the Heart Association. If you had a family member who passed from, heart disease or heart attack, get involved with that if your heartstrings wrap around that organization. But I really believe, generally speaking, across the board, for an individual or business owner, if you're not involved in your community, and if you're not trying to make your community better or enhance the quality of life, then you're a part of the problem. That's like knowing a crime is being committed and you ain't doing nothing to solve the crime.
Yeah.
So you're an accessory to the crime.
Yeah. And there's so many chambers here. There's like 2 or 3 Hispanic chambers, and shout out to Juan. Juan has been on when we first came here, but there's so many, so people don't know, and people always say, oh, but these are so expensive, or, what am I going to get out of it? Which it's kind of like dating. What are you going to get out of it? What are you going to bring to it? And so you ain't got nothing to bring yourself to the table, but you just want to get. And that's a lot of problems with the community.
Well, I always say there's 2 types of people in this world, Kellen. There's takers and there's givers.
Yeah.
There ain't no in between. Figure out who you are. What bucket you sit in. But generally speaking, there's only 2 types of people. So I choose to be a giver.
Yeah.
Because givers get blessings.
Yeah. Amen.
Takers only accumulate what they take.
Amen. And with that, you guys, great storytellers always want you having more. I want you guys to bother Bruce if he doesn't put his book out there or his podcast soon, like this year. Bother him. Call him. You heard the phone ringing earlier. Call him and say, hey, when can we get some more wisdom? And he might tell you, you got to come through, E2C or come see me, but he will give you some game. Let them know the best place to find you, follow you in this. I know you don't do a lot of online. You're in the real world, but let them know. I'll have links in the description of all these things, you guys. And, I thank you for the time.
Well, the best way to reach me, the best channel that you'll get probably a prompt response from is the Equity Entrepreneur Center. So you can always visit www.equityentrepreneur.center. We have a customer service rep that just does the most about getting back to people. Become a part of E2C if you're a business owner. We've just now launched our Alumni Association, which is a continuum long-term. So that's a culture and community within itself. Through that organization, being the founder of that, through that organization, you can get me. Because that one is really kind of my passion space. It embodies what I've been doing all my life. And so that's the best way to get me. And then if you want to spill over into the more private business side, that's still a way to get me. And then we can kind of, transfer over to that space and help you out whenever you need some help, or steer you in the right direction, or open a door for you, or write a letter of support, or whatever people need. I will say this in closing. You don't expect anybody to invest in you unless you're willing to invest in yourself. And if you come see me and take some of my time, I give, and it's all free. You just set up the time. But I'm going to give you a homework assignment. You won't be able to see me anymore until you complete the homework assignment. Sorry. Yeah. Because if you don't demonstrate to me that you're willing to help yourself, I'm not going to waste my time and help you if you haven't demonstrated that. So that's my closing and parting words for this interview.
You guys have gotten the game. Thank you for making it to the end. I know most of you are listeners, but even if you listen to this all the way through, you were driving the truck or on a family vacation, because we keep it clean, go over to the YouTube and go give it some love there. Wherever you experience this, like it, comment, and they always tell me, make sure you share this game with somebody. It will change their life. Y'all be blessed.
Are you a successful entrepreneur or one in training? You've got the vision, but do you have the right partner to build your brand, your team, and your future online and off? At 𝐶PRfirm.com, we offer expert consulting, financial guidance, and life coaching because we believe in doing life with our clients. After all, what is it for a man to gain the world and lose his soul? Founded by 𝐬𝐮𝐞𝐭 Coleman, we help our clients not only succeed, but plan to retire rich. Your business deserves the best. Start building your legacy today at 𝐶PRfirm.com.
Are you tired of the rat race in America? Are you ready to visit the motherland to relax and rejuvenate? Are you ready to explore all that Africa has to offer? Then check out the brand new Diversified Game Academy course, Prepare for My First Trip to Africa. Are you worried about being able to afford the trip? We got you. We will show you how to travel either on a budget or as a baller. Learn how to stress the value of the USD. Did you know that 100 United States dollars is worth over 1,000 South African rand, or 10,000 Kenyan shillings, or 54,250 West African CFA? Are you worried about taking your kids? Get the game from Kelly Cash, a bona fide world traveler, having traveled to almost 20 countries, several of those in Africa. Get the game on taking your kids on their first trips. Learn how to find the best tickets, get the visas, and plan your own adventures in Africa. Don't let Eddie Murphy have all the fun. Plan your own coming to Africa trip starring you, produced by you, and featuring you. If you are ready for a life-changing experience, sign up for our course today, Diversified Game Academy. Get prepared and purchase at diversifiedgame.com.